Probably first and foremost is a very slick functioning website. Nice and simple, people to navigate around it very easily, and ultimately be able to book in a straightforward manner. We have a key safe on the outside of each pod, and when anyone books, they receive the key code for that key safe, and it means that we don't need to have somebody on site and to manage check-ins, and it means that, like you say, there's no labor cost there.
If you could give one piece of advice to someone who was thinking of starting a glamping site to operate it completely remotely, what would that be? Hello and welcome back to the Glampitect podcast. Today, for the fourth time, I believe, we've got Ali, your co-founder of NC500 Pods and Glampitect. The first time, I believe, we spoke about just what it's like to own a glamping site. The second time was, I'm struggling to remember now. Oh yeah, the biggest mistakes you'll make on your glamping journey and how to avoid them. Then it was only a couple of months ago, I think, that we spoke about searching for land, and I'd recommend if anyone is thinking of starting a site and they haven't got land, they go back and listen to that, because there's some really good do's and don'ts on what to do when you're looking for land for a glamping site there. Today, we're going to be talking about what it's like to own a glamping site, but specifically to operate it remotely. Ali, with his business partner, Callum, set up NC500 Pods in, was it 2018, I believe?
Yeah, started in 2018, but opened in 2019.
Yeah, and that's run completely remotely. It takes a little bit of work, but it's pretty much a form of passive income for them. They've obviously got someone running it on the ground. So that's what we're going to talk about today, about how you go about implementing systems that allow a glamping site to run itself, so that you can free up your time to work your other job, or, you know, run a business like Glampitect, like Ali and Callum do. This isn't just useful for anyone who wants to run a site completely remotely, because obviously you might want to run it completely on the ground, but you might also want to take a holiday from time to time. You might be ill from time to time. So it's always good to have these systems in place so that the business can run without you when needed. So, I mean, we might as well launch straight into it, because we've covered your backstory, and anyone who wants to know a bit more about that can go back to listen to the multitude of episodes that we've got with you, Ali. So let's just go straight into it. What are the key aspects you need in place to operate a glamping site remotely?
Sure, yeah. Probably first and foremost is a very slick functioning website. Nice and simple, people to navigate around it very easily, and ultimately be able to book in a straightforward manner. You touched on this earlier, that there's two ways to run a site like this. You can be quite hands-on and manage the bookings yourself through phone calls, or the other method we see is inquiry forms that are based on digital kind of websites and things like that you can go into the website, fill in a form, and the owner of the glamping site will get back to you and say, yeah, I can book you in there, no problem. It's quite labor intensive to do that. And also, if like you say, if you're on holiday, it means that you need to find somebody else to do that for you, or you're not taking bookings. And also means that for people who want to book a stay with you, that maybe live in a different country or in a different time zone, they might not be able to book with you. So it's a barrier to booking in some cases. And the opposite's also true as well, that when you're asleep and you have a remote system, you can take bookings and not even know a thing about it, but you've been making money while you sleep, and that's quite nice to wake up to. But yeah, the website's the most important one. So we have a channel manager system on our website. It's not actually part of the website, but it's hosted elsewhere, and it's built into the website so that it looks as if it's there. It does all the clever stuff. So it will manage the bookings directly from people visiting our website, and it will also communicate with other booking channels. So by booking channels, I mean Booking.com, Airbnb, TripAdvisor, Expedia, any other website like that you can think of. You can usually connect them with a channel manager. And what that does is, when somebody books on your website, it's a central calendar. So it's Beds24 is the one we use. So somebody will book on our website, and the link from the website to Beds24 will block out that date for that pod. And that will prevent a double booking on the website. But the clever part comes where it speaks to all of these other channels and blocks out the same dates on Booking.com's website, TripAdvisor website, all of that sort of stuff. But it's two-way communication. So if somebody was to book on TripAdvisor, say, the signal comes back the way to Beds24, to the channel manager, and blocks out the dates so that people can't book direct from our website or any of the other channels. So it should be a fail-safe system. And it also manages all of the booking confirmations as well. So we don't have to do that. When somebody books, they will receive an email automatically that has all of their check-in information, any other pertinent information about what they need to do with regards to their booking, and really hands off. And so you mentioned the backstory a few minutes ago. So at the time that we were planning the site, it was pre-Glampitect days. We both had full-time jobs, and we couldn't commit time to doing this, to managing a glamping site, as well as fulfilling our roles in our day jobs. So we had to build a system that was completely autonomous and completely remote. And the website and the integration with the channel manager really allows that to happen. That's the first most important piece that makes it all work. Secondary to that, and the absolutely not any less important piece, is to have somebody local who can manage the site day to day. So it doesn't have to be somebody that is happy to speak to the clients and see how they're getting on, but obviously that helps. That's a nice touch point. But you need somebody there that can do the changeovers, to clean the units after the last guest is checked out, prepare the unit for the next guest that's going to come, and any other things on site that need attention. Does the barbecue need cleaned? Is there a hot tub to drain and refill and test the water? Things like that. So you need to have somebody you can trust, and trust there is really important. They need to understand the level of service you're trying to give, and execute your plans, I suppose. So that's probably the next most important part, is having that network of people, or in our case, it's one person that kind of manages everything else.
Sorry, just on that point, I believe you went through a few people that you were trialing for that role, weren't you? And it took you a while to land on Christine, who we actually interviewed a good few months back now. So if anyone wants to know what it's like to actually be the person on the ground running the site, then they can go and find that as well. But you did go through quite a protracted process to find her.
We did. We started off with somebody that owned the local laundrette. And we actually went through two businesses like that. They owned the laundrette, and they had local cleaning contracts for Airbnbs and people that have bed and breakfasts and guest house and things like that. And they did a good job. They were not necessarily cheap in some instances, and cost was always something we were negotiating with them. And something that we learned is that it's a big job. We have 4 units on each site. If you have nightly bookings, you're generating a lot of laundry and towels and bedding and whatnot. It's a big job, and the costs can be underestimated quite easily. So we went through, like you said, a couple of people before we found a solution that works better for us. And we're really happy with the way things work now. As you said, Christine was on the podcast and has chatted about how she finds working with us, and we're very lucky to have her. She does a great job. So yeah, that's the kind of the next most important part. But linking it back to the website, the channel manager will also provide information for Christine. So it doesn't just speak to the person that's booking to say, this is the date you're coming, this is what you do when you check in. Christine also receives a separate email to say the same sort of information, but tailored more for how many people are coming, how many sets of bed and linen and bed linen, and towels do we need to have prepared. So really, most of it comes back again to the channel manager through the website. So that's probably the most important part. I think for the remainder of what we talk about, it's going to be hard for me not to come back to this time and again, but it is the heart of the operation.
I think we are going to come back to it straight away, because you mentioned there when a guest books, could be while you're asleep, and they get all the details they need for their stay. Now, obviously, the pods are locked for obvious reasons when people aren't staying in them. So do the guests come and pick a key up from Christine physically, or is there an automated system that they use to minimize labor costs there as well?
Yeah, you're right. There are options there. And initially, when we were planning the site, we had a reception hut in the plans, which is there. We did build the hut, but we use it for storage, not for reception. We hadn't sussed out the system then, but yeah, basically, no, they don't pick up a key. We have a key safe on the outside of each pod, and when anyone books, they receive the key code for that key safe, and it means that we don't need to have somebody on site and to manage check-ins, and it means that, like you say, there's no labor cost there, but also it's flexible for the customer. They can arrive after a certain time, whether I think typically check-in starts from 3 in the afternoon, but the guests can arrive anytime they want between after 3 o'clock. So that makes it convenient for them, especially when they're probably out sightseeing and enjoying themselves. There's no rush to be there for a certain time before somebody logs off for the day. So that's quite good. That has worked well, and we rotate the numbers every so often to for security. One thing on that, most insurance companies don't like you leaving the keys in the box for extended periods of time. So when the cleaner is finished preparing the pod for the next guest, the key is popped in the safe and locked. And if there's not going to be anybody in the pod for a few days, and luckily we've been very busy, so that hasn't really happened, the key needs to be removed to kind of satisfy your insurance policy. But yeah, no, it works with the key safe, and that's worked very well. The only time that has fallen down is with some of the other booking channels that I mentioned. So sometimes the automated process, it does work, but sometimes it requires our guests to check on booking.com, for example, that's where they'll get their confirmation. And they need to have acknowledged the message on booking.com to understand where, to get the code. And if they don't, we have had a couple of people turn up and have not been able to access their pod because they don't know the code. Luckily, we have a system for that, and there are phone numbers for people like Christine who can help, and they're always on hand. And it's just a case of having that out of hours service, so that if people do turn up late and can't get in, we can give them the code to do so. So that's really the only small issue we found, but 99% of the time there's no issue at all. And it's been a really good system that means that, as you say, there's very little input for Callum and I, which is good because Glampitect keeps us busy.
And one word you said there that stands out to me is the word system. It seems quite a common theme amongst all this. If you are looking to operate a site remotely, you need to put these systems in place. I think Callum mentioned it in the last podcast we did with him as well. It's all about systemizing your business so it can run without you. As I say, whether that's completely without you remotely, or whether that's if you need to go on holiday, or if you're sick as well, having those systems in place and those backup systems like that, so that there's always someone on hand if necessary. You mentioned as well earlier that you've got a storage hut. How does that come into play for running a site, whether that's remotely or if you're on the ground too?
Yeah, so it's just flexible. I think that's what it allows us to be. So we have a change, or at least one change of linen for each pod on standby at all times. So typically we have 3 sets, so 1 in use, 1 on standby in the storage hut, and 1 probably away being cleaned. But what it does allow us to do is that it means that we can have different people come and clean the pods each day, and they've all got the same access to the fresh stock. But we also keep consumables in there, so things like teas, coffees, biscuits, things like that. They all need a place to live, and glamping units are pretty small, so they don't tend to fit everything inside. So having a storage hut's really handy. Cleaning products. we don't have a daily pickup for laundry, so dirty bed linen and towels will be stored for a day or two, perhaps in the hut. So in appropriate kind of laundry bags, and will be taken away and cleaned. So it just allows us a bit of flexibility, and in a remote location where doing things every day can be quite challenging and expensive in terms of transport costs and things. It just that flexibility is something we absolutely needed. So even down to things like having a few tools and a few maintenance items here and there can really help. And the other thing that was very useful was we also have our electric meter in there. So the power for the site comes into the hut, and goes through the meter and distribution board and everything, and then goes out to all the pods. Same thing with our satellite broadband. The dish is mounted on the hut, so that it's not mounted on anyone's pod or anything. And again, same thing, into the hut, and then it's distributed out to all of the pods. So it acts as a little hub really for all the power and telecoms, as well as just a storage unit. But it's been very useful to have that space.
Mm-hmm. And then the last little point we were going to discuss was maintenance. So, the people who set up a glamping site, they might think themselves quite handy, DIY, that kind of thing. So they might be able to sort that themselves. But if someone is like me, completely useless at that kind of thing, and they wanted to set up a site and run it remotely, how would you go, or how have you gone about organising the maintenance side of things?
So again, we've been quite fortunate. Christine's husband, that we mentioned earlier, Christine, her husband built one of our sites. So has his own construction firm, and is very handy with this sort of thing. So we're very lucky to have Christine and her husband on hand to help. But yeah, again, it's just about finding somebody in the area that is able to help and building that relationship with them. And again, this can help with planning applications as well. You can have this on your planning app to say, I'm going to need a handyman. I'm going to need somebody to do the laundry. I'm bringing money into the industry, but into the economy, sorry, and potentially, increasing employment in the area as well. So it's never going to be a massive impact, even on a small community, but it does help. And we have other local businesses that help us too. So even things like landscaping, we have a gardener that comes and cuts the grass, and having somebody that will do that on a monthly basis keeps the site looking much better than it would be if I was to go and try and do it myself. So even now that my day job is related to this business and to Glampitect, I'm still not up there every month. I don't visit the site that often, so I can't do things like that. And the cost is very low to have a local gardener cut the grass once a month. And like I said, it makes the place look much better more of the time. So really, it's preferable to do it that way, whether you're on site or not, I think, unless you really like cutting the grass. But yeah, in terms of other maintenance, there's not really too much to go wrong with glamping pods. Certainly not yet. Our units are still pretty young. They're in good condition. They need a little bit of TLC once a year, perhaps. But yeah, overall, it's not been too big an issue. And in terms of overall remote operation of the site, it's all worked very well, which is just as well for us because, as I said, we're not there all the time. And part of that is intentional. We wanted to build it that way so that even if this was the full-time job, we don't have to be there all the time. So depends on your intention. The other options we've mentioned for operating the site not remotely and being there is valid too. If you're moving out of the city to be in the country and you want to have a nice little business that's hands-on, that's also great. But I think the most efficient means is to operate it in a way that can be autonomous. And I think that's the way you're going to maximize your occupancy, because like you say, you can, receive bookings any time of the day, 365 days a year. And it's easier. It's just hands off. There's enough to keep you occupied managing a site without having to manage the bookings as well. And The other little bonus that I can think of is, I know if I was to be doing all of the bookings myself, I would probably get myself tied in knots with double bookings, and this system we have removes that human error. So I'm very glad to have it.
Perfect. And you might well have answered my question in that last little bit there. But moving on to the broader questions that we asked towards the end of the episode, what is the best thing about being someone who operates a glamping site completely remotely?
I suppose the best thing is that it allows you to get on with the rest of your life while still operating a successful, profitable business. Yeah, really, I think that, like you said, the reasons we've touched on, there's lots of advantages to doing it that way. And yeah, I'm very glad that we did set up our site like that, so that we've been able to devote almost all of our time to Glampitect. And we've talked at length in other episodes about what Glampitect is and how it's changed over the years and how it's had success. And without the automated systems for North Coast 500 Pods, we wouldn't have been able to devote so much time to making Glampitect what it is. So yeah, it's time. I think it buys you back a lot of time.
And the obvious next question: what's the biggest challenge that you faced when operating a site remotely or setting up to operate remotely?
I think it's understanding how to operate the channel manager and set it up correctly. There's more and more these days, they're designed to be easy to connect to different channels like your booking.coms and Airbnbs, but it's not easy. It's not always obvious. All of these other channels have their own ways of operating, and you have to learn them all and make sure you're connecting them properly to your channel manager. And even setting up the channel manager alone isn't easy. There are ways to set up things like the nightly rates to have a seasonal fluctuation, so that you're able to charge more in the summer than you are maybe in the winter. You want to set it up so that over Christmas and New Year or bank holidays that you're able to charge more. And that's all doable, and it's quite easy to set it all up once you understand how you're doing it. But learning that system, if you've never done it before, is quite hard. So luckily, again, it's somewhere that the whole ethos of Glampitect is we want to help people set up their glamping sites, and that is a service we offer. So we I think at the moment we're helping 4 different clients set up their website and channel manager system. So it is something we do. We have some expert knowledge in it now, I would say. And yeah, if it's something that sounds interesting, please get in touch.
Absolutely. And the standard last question that we ask all our guests, I think you've been asked it 3 times already, but we always give it a little tweak depending on the episode. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who was thinking of starting a glamping site to operate it completely remotely, what would that be?
Well, I said we'd get back to it, but it's having that website and having the vision for how you want your website to be and how you want it to operate, and understanding how a channel manager can assist you with that goal and how best to set it up. And if it is all of a mystery to you, and it's something that you want, but you just can't quite figure out for yourself, and it's not easy, then, like I say, do get in touch. We'll be happy to help.
Fantastic. Now we need to find a few more guests before we get you on for a 5th time. I've sent out a few emails today, so hopefully we won't be seeing you for a long time, Ali. But you never know. I'm sure you'll be back on for a 5th time at some point. So thanks for giving up your time again.
No problem.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Glampitect podcast. I hope you enjoyed and that you found value in today's episode. If you did, feel free to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us move up the podcast rankings. Thank you.